Hello and welcome to another Python or open source live code hangout. I'm working on some changes to the community stream here. All right, let's see, it should show up below the stream chat. So we're going to continue working on the pull request in progress, where we are adding user assignments to homes. It's a fairly large pull request, 400 lines. We've completed two parts of it. I should actually convert this to a checklist. And so we allow users to be assigned to one or more homes. The homes page will list only the homes which a regular user has been assigned. The super user can see all homes, so we had to write some unit tests for both of those cases. Users attempting to access a home profile without proper assignment will encounter a 403 error, not authorized. So this is where we left off. So I think we're gonna have to look at the home view. Let's take a look at how this is defined. The home detail view. Yes, and essentially it's a model view, and it'll return an instance of a home. Just trying to see what's going on here in the get object. This is where we would fetch the context object. I'm not sure we need to use a model detail view if we're just going to, I mean, we could be using just a bespoke class-based view here. I think that's actually what I'll do. This code I wrote, I think, a long time ago. I don't have a git blame to see when I wrote this. It's a fairly complicated view, but let's look at it. So if we go to the homes list, we'll see multiple homes. I'm a super user here. We've got a group with 2 homes in there and then some homes without a group. I'll just go ahead and view this home. And what essentially we're doing here is preparing some chart data relating to work and some activities, mostly, well, both actually here. Yeah, and we have the chart data wrapped in functions that are in our charts. All right, so I'm just getting my bearings straight. So one thing I would like to do is just check. We have a this view has a request attached to it. I think in the get context data we can return 404 here. Let me check with ChatGPT. Yeah, I believe this query set is just going to be referring to home objects, and then we're now objects all basically, and then we're now filtering it by the actual keyword argument, this UUID field basically. Because when I view a home, we're not using the internal primary key. We've got this short UUID. So we've got a Django model view, model detail view. And I want to know where the most idiomatic place would be to perform a user authorization check. They should be authenticated, so that's an easy one, I believe, to add. Yeah. And perform a 403, not authorized. The most idiomatic place to perform user authorization check in a detail view is to override the get query set. Okay. Here you can apply the authorization logic and raise a permission denied exception if the check fails. This exception automatically raises a 403 forbidden response. Now we're also overriding the get object, which might be a little bit earlier in the call path, call chain. But we do have, so these are bespoke methods, so to speak. I'm kind of tempted to move them out of the class. And since I'm already overriding the get object and get context data, maybe we can do it there. So the get object method is used to retrieve the object that the view will display, just as in the get query set method. This method is more suitable if your authorization logic is specifically tied to the object being retrieved, which it is. Yeah. And I can add a method on the home. So here we have the object, the home object here. Just want to kind of be explicit about that. So if we come over here to the home model, I can use this members, and I'll put that kind of close. Oh, yeah, that was good. Wow, it's really on top of it. So it returns if true if the user has access to this home. And I will just document the criteria. Super users have access to all homes. Members of the home have access to the home. Yeah. So return user is super user or user in self members all. Really cool. All right, and So here's what we need to do to test this, and I'll write a unit test. So we're at home 0. If I go to admin, and I go to home user relations, I have a test user, and they're a member of home 0 and 1. So if I open an incognito window here and log in as the test user, I don't remember if I did test user. There we go. And so I go to my homes page, and it shows the correct homes here, so I can access these. But if I want to try so somehow I get an email, or I was maybe transferred to a different care home or department or something like that. So I'll go back just to double check. I don't have access to home 2, but if I do that, then we get permission error, which is what we expect. And if debug is false, that should raise. Now, one problem, 404, we're presenting a 403 page, which we'll have to check if that exists. I need to take this out of debug mode. And another thing is I need to make sure the user is logged in, otherwise we might have some troubles trying to access the property. And how do we decorate the view with login required? I don't remember the syntax of a couple of options. Use a login required mix-in. That's probably about right. So I would prefer that approach. And then we will use it. And we might as well require it here as well. You have to be logged in order to view the homes list, a specific home, but we allow anonymous access to the resident page. For now, the reason being is so that family members can check on their loved one without having to have an account, which we would need to manage their login and that kind of stuff. There's not a lot of personally identifiable information on the page, and sort of security through obscurity, but we might have to reassess that at a later point. I think this is a good improvement. So how can let me double check my environment. Just debug is false and see what happens. So if I go to the settings, core settings, whoops, bug, and just set this to false. We've got it hard coded to true. That is not a good idea. And bring up this one. Now, instead of seeing this debug page, I should see, like, make sure the must set the settings allowed host if debug is false. All right, that makes sense. Default is my local computer. I don't know if that'll work, but oh yeah, default would be allowed hosts. Interesting. All right, run the server. As we're doing before, the values in CSR of trusted origins. Let's start with a scheme. Scheme. Oh man. So that won't work. Right now we're not really dealing with CSRF, so I'll just leave this one alone. Otherwise I would have to do something funky. I don't really want to dance around that issue. Okay, so server error 500. That's not exactly what I was hoping for. Permission error. I'm going to need to give them a little more information there. 403 forbidden response. Instead of causing a 500 internal server error when a permission check fails in Django, you should raise a permission denied exception. Yeah, and not a permission error. That's a good point. Good small distinction. Oh, and that's essentially what it told me to do. I don't know how I got confused there. Perhaps I was getting the code from GPT. I'm not sure what happened. Yeah, GPT did generate this code. That is correct. And that's a pretty explicit distinction there. Permission denied. Yeah, we'll try it again. 403 forbidden. Very good. Now let's create a nice 403 forbidden page. just double checking. Yeah, custom template for that will be the 403 HTML. So I'll put this in our base templates directory here. 403, and we'll extend base.html, and then we'll put the block content. Oops. Will be this. See how this looks, and a little bit of space. We need to translate everything, and they don't need to. Probably don't need the error number. It's most people don't even know what that means, I'm sure. Now if we refresh, server error this time. Once this template is in place, Django will automatically use it for 403 responses triggered by permission denied exceptions. Okay, usually it involves setting up the dirs and your templates. Your settings up high. Let me just do this. One thing is I just created it, so if I stop the server and I restart it, it's returning 500. Let me just do this and rename this and see if that was the change that broke it. So now I get a 403 forbidden. Let me just try this, but I would imagine I can use, and I'm pretty sure I can use standard Django template syntax. I guess not. Okay. Well, I know I can, but there's some configuration. So let's see how we can use the Django template syntax, such as extending base HTML in our 403 template. Yeah, the extend should work. Then we need to find a block. So let me just start. I mean, that's it. That's right there. Block title. Yeah, and then at the top, maybe I had something wrong with my extension tag. There it is. Yeah. Let me just see what I did wrong here. Probably, I know what it was. It's this translate tag. It's doing too much at once. Access denied. Forbidden. You do not have permission to access this page. There we are. Now we're good. They can recover. And basically, since I had disabled debug mode, there was an error that was arising. It was telling me I hadn't imported the load i18in tag, but it was being swallowed and it was just returning a 500 error. So it was a bit of a tricky to debug situation, because enabling debug mode then wouldn't have rendered the template, I think. Let's see. Bug equals. Let's grab it from there with the default. This is setting me up a little bit. So I've got the environment. I'll make sure we have an env file here, which I don't have. This is a good way to trip up contributors, but there we are. So no, I was wrong. It's still showing me the if debug is true. I think part of it is I need to reload. Then, for example, if I remove this, I get a 500 error. All right, so there we go. So it's not picking up the end file. Oh, I think it needs to be Django debug. Let me see what that, yeah. All right, so now we're good to go. We should still have this. Maybe I don't know, man. I don't know. Not sure why that's not working exactly. We'll leave the default at true. We're not anywhere close to production right now. But I will need to change that and figure out why my environment file isn't working. It's in the same level as manage pi, but that's not the main problem right now. So let's commit pretty much the allowed hosts. We had to add a model method and then a view. With those few changes and unit tests, I'm really getting in the habit of this. So now, the home detail view should have some tests available already. Hey, ZJ, welcome. How are you doing? Hydrate. Okay, let's do that. Let me top up though real quick. Nice. I'll be right back. I'm gonna top up. Okay, cool beans. Yeah, I don't want to overhydrate because I'm gonna be Having trouble sleeping. Yeah, I took your advice and I've started setting up these little perks. I'm not really sure how the channel points work. If you got any names for the channel points, programmer points is kind of probably boring. I was thinking about calling them cookies. Sort of a pun, because cookies, you know, on web browsers, but that's probably not a very good one. And then I don't know how fast they accumulate or like what the the value of them are. So I don't know how much I should. What? 1,000? Oh my gosh. Okay. That's crazy. How do you even get? All right, nice. That's already half of the cowboy mustache budget. I should have priced it higher, I guess. Okay. How's your day going? 1 per minute. Okay. Dang, that's a lot of minutes. Wow, thanks. That's really cool. Let's see what we got. So yeah, I need to unit test this one. I've got the list view test, but I don't have any of the home view tests. I suppose because we have been, I guess, lazy. I've been lazy about it. So let's add one. 1 minute, 1 point per minute. How's your day going? You looking forward to the weekend? Did you get through the legal stuff to get that behind you? Ah, for an activity check. That's cool. Right, so and then the rate is determined by the subscriber. Okay, yeah, and I haven't been watching how other channels use them, but I'll, you know, getting to know all this stuff, trying it out. It's fun. It's really cool though. I was like, what could I do? I don't know. I was just thinking, and for some reason, Burt Reynolds came to my mind. He has a good mustache, good 80s mustache. I don't know if I can get a Burt Reynolds mustache. That's one. Let's see if I can grow one of those. Alright, so it looks like we just need to add tests for this view. It's just not been tested. And where does it show up? I don't know if I can put the little cowboy mustache thing on my, like a chat overlay, or if it's like below the chat or something. I just set it up like right before the stream. In fact, I was a little bit late hopping on the stream because I was getting the emoji set up. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll look for like some kind of browser overlay I can add to OBS. I don't want to get too cluttered, but I think there's room for it. But this animated background is making my VOD size really huge, or when I export the movie to do a little bit of editing and then post to YouTube, it's like massive. I did a 6-hour stream yesterday, and it was like 16 gigabytes. But for comparison, I guess it should have been about half of that. I think it's just because this high definition animated background is causing a lot of information to be displayed. It's not able to kind of optimize for that. Whereas these areas with static colors, the video, compression algorithm can kind of like optimize those big static areas. Pretty good. All right, so I need to import this view. You got anything you're looking forward to on the weekend? Just relaxing? So essentially, local import should go a little bit down here, just to kind of get my imports sorted. And then the views comes after models, alphabetically. Let's see if GPT thinks of something. Views, import, gaming, yeah. That's cool. And I think we've talked about a couple of these games. I almost bought DayZ the other day. I learned that DayZ will run on ProtonDB. It has a gold rating. I've played a lot of these like shooter games, and I'm interested in survival and tactical shooter games. I've really been wanting to play like Squad, I think I mentioned that one, or Arma 3, or DayZ, but I'm in it mainly to like kind of team up with people and like hang out. So there's probably, but not so much of the adrenaline, twitch, fire, shooting action. And it would need to run on Linux and not be a massive thing. So I don't know if there's many options. But DayZ does, at least the base game, maybe not the mods. There was something about needing to flip some configuration thing. And it was on offer. But anyway, I don't know. Okay, so let's see. Given our home detail view now, checks for The permission denied. Let's just ask GPT to help us with this test. Home factory. Do we have an account factory? Do we need one? We don't need an account factory probably. What was the name of, I think it was home user, oh, it's in my factories, relation factory. Let's just give it the whole thing. Squad, yep. Oh yeah, cool, no worries. Life is busy. I'll be in and out of chat as well. My focus is going to be kind of hopping back and forth between this issue. This is looking good. Yeah, and I like these tests because they're really granular. It's just testing the one thing, each one. I think the tests I was working on in this PR yesterday, with the help of GPT, they were like mega function tests, and I'd like to actually ask GPT to help me refactor those a little bit, just so they're easier to grok and maintain for the humans among us. This is a good test. Sweet. Yes. We will try it out. So far, human developers, not obsolete. We must assert our relevancy. Alright, and then does this little pasting thing always. It's kind of a long test suite. Let me make sure everybody's indented. I guess so. And we'll run the tests. See if we can run a test. Oops, that was it. Darn it. And doggone it. There is something wrong. Oh yeah. Somehow I've already broken this. There we go. So tests will still pass. Run and pass. And then import our view, import our model. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so just chilling. It's kind of nice to have some kind of voice in the background sometimes. Somebody doing some work. I do that with podcasts as well. But I guess it's better to have a voice that is interactive. All right, so now we can run this detail view test. See what we get. Now these ones are very straightforward to read and debug. I believe we should have a good time here, but they're erroring out. So 2 of them failed. No reverse match for home detail. All right. So that's just the thing that the model doesn't know the name of our view, so it made an attempt. And I'm going to move this URL up, equals reverse home detail quargs. So they're both sort of guessing that it's a home detail view. And the problem is I can't define this until I've created the home. Now I can get the URL UUID, and I'll just double check our URL patterns, home detail view. So then it's a bit scrunched. It's a bit, since the URL doesn't change to it. Status code, and then the other touch, I like to use HTTP .forbidden. That way it's a little bit more explicit. I don't have to do the mental mapping. What does 403 mean again? It's kind of, reflexive by now, but naming things. I think it's accepted or okay, one of the two. That varies depending on the library. Okay one? Oh, it is there. There it is. Yeah, okay. That's actually what we're looking for. Yeah, one time I bought Squad for like a brief moment and I just tried it on Linux, and I sort of like walked 10 meters and then the whole thing bugged out on me. I was like in null space almost. It was real disappointing, so I just got a refund real quick on that one. But yeah, it looks cool. Squad, you have to be dedicated. It looks like to play that game, you got to kind of, it's not action packed. It looks great. Yeah, the graphics and the gameplay look really cool, and I like the fact that you have roles and hierarchy, and you're following more experienced players, and squad leaders have different levels of visibility and communication layers. And I like all the vehicles. That's one really cool aspect of it. I'd probably be a medic. Yeah, I wouldn't dare, starting out, of course, be a squad leader. I wouldn't know what the heck's going on. But I think medic I can kind of grasp and play my role there. All right, so we got some passing tests, and I actually didn't need to import the view because we're using the reverse URL, so that makes sense. Let's go ahead and commit this, and I'll see if I can get a little bit of help refactoring these sort of mega function tests. Maybe that wasn't as bad as I was thinking, but I think it was. Yeah, this, where I'm doing a lot of iteration and validation. There's a lot of assertions. If you got like 5, 10 assertions in a test, I don't know. It seems like the test is probably doing too much, but maybe not. Maybe it's just the way it needs to be. As long as it's testing all the right things. But that's the problem, is it's hard to tell if it's testing all the right things. It's too much to keep in memory, in mind. Properly assigned users will have full access to the home profile, including the ability to create activities for the residents of the home. This is a tricky one. This implies quite a lot, actually. Surprising. Because it implies the inverse in a way that you can't record activities for residents of homes you're not a member of, which would mean I would need to filter out the resident choice list. I'll have to cross this bridge eventually, and one possible approach is to add a modal dialog here on the homepage, which I've been thinking about doing instead of this global one, which essentially this global one's just a page, and it lists all the residents now grouped by home and sorted alphabetically. This list is going to grow potentially to thousands of people, so this is really just a temporary solution in any case. However, there are certain people in the care network that have insight or oversight or influence in many of the residents, so they would actually potentially need to select from all the Josephs or Christophers, which is Christiana's and Christopher's. But what I can do is a step in the direction, and as part of this pull request, without making it too big, though I'm the only contributor, is filter this modal. Filter this resident select list by fetching all of the homes that the requesting user is a member of, or if they're a super user, just every resident. But if they're not super users, so fetch all the homes, fetch all the home residencies. It's tricky. Group. Yeah, I'll have to take a quick break. Think about this for a moment. My hydration is, the cycle is completing itself, so I'll be right back. Yes, I need to add the music on the, yeah, I got this. I had to go water the fishes. I need to add the music on the loading page, the pause menu. All right, this one I can do. Yeah, I'm gonna do this too. This is gonna be a tricky one, but I think I have a helper function for it already to group the residents by homes. These are actually residencies, and so it's a bit abstract in my mind right now, but let's make this happen. Then we'll have one activity submit form. It can be a modal dialog, it doesn't matter, but the list is populated based on the homes the user is the member of, or everybody for the super user. So let's take a look at how this is generated. So it's its own view. So if I go to the activities, views, and it might just be a matter of passing two query sets or modifying the query set that gets passed to the form, which is the ideal solution. Ideal situation from my perspective. I don't have to think about it. We've already thought about it. Good, that's where they should be. But here we go, get resident choices. Yeah, this will be good. Get ready for it. Now the problem though, in the view, in the form, I don't have access to the request user. Maybe. Yeah, see, nothing comes in here. I'm just getting the residencies. So there's the first problem. Dang it. But so the first thing to do then is determine how to pass in these choices to the form. The form doesn't, to my knowledge, have access to the request. So let's give ChatGPT some context here. It has surprisingly deep and nuanced knowledge of the Django web framework. It's the Django form view, but at this point it's got the context. That renders a model form. No, this is just based on the request user. So they can choose only from choices they're allowed to view. Now, I could also just question whether or not this is an important thing to do. From a privacy perspective, with GDPR, we have the few principles or guidelines, and one of them is data minimization. What are these GDPR guidelines? Typically means collect only the data you need, but I think it also means to only share the data you need with the particular people who need it. So if I can get a GDPR TLDR, so the point is, and I'm a dummy, I need that dummy's version of it. We need to put banners on everything. That's the main thing. That's what GDPR is, the granddaddy banner regulation. Okay, so my form choices, let me read this. To prepare the choices for the multiple choice field in a Django form view based on the request user, you need to override the get form quargs method. Interesting. What? Oh yeah, nice. I knew there would be a way in Django. It just is so well designed and evolved. I guess it, of course, didn't all come at once. I forgot to change my episode number. I think so. I don't know if we can have emojis in our episode titles on Twitch. Form quargs. There we go. Let's do this. So after my init, that's the form. I need to go to the form view. What the bibbly bobbly? Super. Get the quargs. Add a quarg. Return the quargs. Also known as rock. Now, I've got the user. In my form init, I can do the thing. I have to pop it. And it's actually the user object. Ow. So you could technically just pass the whole request in there. This means I can check if the user is a super user. I should add that authenticated mix in here. You shouldn't be able to view this form view without being signed in. I think that's a simple fix. What was it again? Login required mixin. Oh my goodness. What button did I press? And for some reason it doesn't get the imports right for some of these. Django contrib. And it's not sorting my imports. Maybe that was correct. No, I don't think it was. Alright, so I've passed it in. I've passed in the data, the user to the form. And we should be guaranteed to have a user because I just required login. Now what I'll do, I'll abstract this into the get resident choices method. Now here's the tricky part. We'll define this function here, and it'll do the thing that it was doing before, just slightly abstracted. Ah, that was correct. Django DB import queries, not transaction. Is it Django DB or Django models? Django DB models import queries. Nice. There we go. Now we're getting there, and it returns a tuple, a list of tuple integer string combinations. And what I would like to do is not overthink this, but I don't like these primitive returns. So I'm not sure how to really phrase this, but I'm gonna see if I can do a small refactor without getting too far aside. Part of it is because this is kind of incomprehensible. And essentially I would like to make it clear by having an explicit return. What does this resident choices reflect, right? They're grouped, so resident by home. They're grouped by home, yeah. So part of this being explicit is to make it easier to understand. So we've got a dictionary, and we create a key for each home name. Then we split it out. That's the tricky part. So technically this should be residence by home, right? So let me just do this. And is grouped by query set of residency. And this will return a dictionary where each this is why I don't like this primitive. I want to say, what is this returning here? But at least we're getting into more fathomable territory. We'll go with it. So I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit with this refactor. We're going to be good though. It's essentially here. However, we're good. All right. Wait, this is the one. Base init, got an unexpected queue. All right, so I just need to pay real close attention to the form initialization function. Copilot should know where that is, and I don't understand why my language server doesn't know where these are. From Django contrib auth import user model, accept get user model. So now we can refresh it. We're good to go. So essentially the behavior hasn't changed yet. We're just kind of moving stuff around, maybe needlessly, but I believe it helps my brain to just parse smaller functions that kind of do a more or less single thing, what they say on the tin. So part of the preparing resident, there's a sub-step to group the residents by home. Yeah, so that's good abstraction there. I didn't have to see all this, but if I want to know, how did I get that grouping? Okay, what's going on there? It's a bit more complicated, but unto itself, it's a little easier to grok this function, although not, it's not super simple. And sort of the reason I wanted to refactor this is so that I can just make the modification at the one level of abstraction that's essentially going to change the query set. Somehow I'm going to have to figure that out still, but where the query set will differ. All right, but at least I won't have to read through every level there of that kind of complicated data processing pipeline. Essentially is what it is. All right, so essentially comes down to here. We're going to get the resident choices. However, I'll have two branching conditionals. What I need to do is prepare a list of residencies for the user. If the user is super user, then boom, they get everything. That makes sense. Else, we get the residencies where the home is in the user homes list. We'll double check that this method exists, and if not, it's a helper I can define a query set, and the move out is null. Wow, this is what I was really hoping, that it would just be a matter of changing the query set, the query or whatever. However, there was a lot in the way, and so sort of needed to think about how to reorganize it a little bit. So let's double check that the user model has a home. And I'm pretty sure we added that previously, and GPT already recalls that. But if not, it should be fairly easy to add. Yep, right here. So home model import home objects filter, home user relations, user self. Wow, this is crazy. And there's probably, because these query sets are lazily evaluated, so I think I can, just lost my whole thing. Where was I even? How do I go back? There we are. I think I can still tag the query set in the form. Yeah, there we are. And then let's see if this will work. Actually, I just want to keep it there. Residencies. It's implicit. I think the data type, we don't say this is a house integer and a cat string, so I don't need to, it's like Pascal or something. Okay, so this was what I was a bit afraid of. User is super user. User is none here. So that, there's probably some way I can have two views of the same file. Also, maybe really closely, there's a redirect there. Might be trying to redirect to the login view. So yeah, we'll come back to that one, and then this we'll have to fix the test later. But let me just see. Okay, so back down here where we're passing in the user to the form URL pattern. So we have the form view on our URLs. We'll work backwards a little bit. In the form, in the init, kwargs pop. Yeah, so this should be just the kwargs. Args and kwargs there. I don't need to add an explicit user argument. So that's one thing I did wrong. Here, I don't need this. It's just member of kwargs. But when I do that, I refresh the page, we get another thing. Base form init got an unexpected key user. So I'll just have to paste this one in there. But I probably am not reading this close enough. Super. Oh, you know why? I did it after. Yeah, really subtle. I don't understand why, but wow, I'm surprised I noticed that. Crazy. Never mind, GPT, thank you. Yeah, that's the solution though, before calling super. Yeah. And since I'm a super user, super duper, it's showing me everybody. Now let's go to our incognito window. See if it works. Add activity. I should only see home 0 and 1. Yes, it worked. Now we just gotta fix those tests. I'll need a quick break. I'll commit these changes. Craziness. And then the views, I need to tell myself, why are we doing this? We'll push this, let the whole CI run. I'll run the tests locally and fix those. And I think that'll kind of be it for this pull request. It's been kind of a large pull request. Pretty interesting feature. I'm gonna close this window out and we'll wait for CI to run. I'll just take a brief break and be right back. Okay, very cool. Now, it's still failing the test, so that's all right. At least we'll know which tests are failing. We'll zero in on those. And I'll need to write, this is not always the most exciting thing, I'll need to write unit tests though for this home, the resident user field, to make sure that the choices are correct, because this is one of the more critical things in terms of privacy, as mentioned earlier. How do you even spell that? Right to be forgotten is 1. Anonymization, I believe. Pretty close. Close enough for GPT. The key takeaways from the General Data Protection Regulation can be summarized in the following short, succinct phrases. Dang, there's a lot of them. I only know 2 of them. Data minimization, collect only what is necessary. Right to be forgotten, erase personal data upon request. Anonymization, de-identify people. Data to protect people. Consent requirement, explicit permissions for data processing. Data portability, allow data transfer between services. Allow data transfer, yes. So our data should be, we can export that. Transparency, clear information about data use. Accountability, organizations must be responsible for data handling. Data protection by design, integrate data protection into system design. Protection impact assessments, breach notification, lawfulness of processing, children's data protection, data subject rights. Cross-border data transfer regulation, data protection officers, regular audits, international cooperation, and penalties for non-compliance. So I guess the principles here is the minimization, collecting only what is necessary, but also data protection by design, integrate data protection into the system design. So essentially, we want to make sure that we're only getting the information to the people who have permission, who are authorized to view that data. This is really good TLDR. I'm not sure I've seen one like this succinct. I should post this somewhere. Maybe I can post it on a blog post. But not right now. Come back to it. So we do have our failures. Not too bad, 2 of them. And I think this is because I added a redirect 302 happening there on our metrics test. So when we're trying to, we need to log in the client essentially. So do we have a user? Because you can see we just allowed anonymous people to post data directly to the database, right? This is a prototype, so I'm not even making any claims. We're rewriting this from scratch, and I'm working my way up from the basic principles, the bedrock, into the more real, the meat of the system. And so now I'm adding authorization, and it's starting to matter that I have created a user, for example. I still have to fix this with dang Copilot, or remember it to my dang brain. From Django contrib auth import get user model. Okay, now we'll have the setup function. Dang, there's a lot going on here. Yeah, so it's right here. Self create a user. That's right. That's right, you Copilot. Oh, I don't know. Test password. Yeah. Log in the user. So in order to make any of these requests, we have to be an authenticated user. Potentially also authorized to submit activities for the particular forms. Dang, this is good stuff. So we're going to create a home. Then we have just a regular user. I'm not even sure that these will work the way it's specifying. But let's see. So let's just run these tests for the metrics to see if we can even, if we get an error. Yeah, so we just have failures, no errors. So this is working. So now the thing is, we got homes and residents. Create residency for each resident. Just give myself some hints. Create 2 residents. We do that. Now I need the home user relationship. Yes, that should be good. We'll also want to create a user who's not associated with any home. Home user. I forget what we called it before. Homeless user. No, we don't do that. User with home, user without home. As whatever. It's a bit tricky, isn't it? They're just a general user at this point. General Zao. Does that work? Is that how you spell that? I don't know. So the general user, no permissions. Home user, good. Super user, good. We'll create use cases for those 3. And then we can log in here. Self-client, force login, self-super user. Error. Oh no. Username. Oh, yeah, of course. Fail. But only one fail this time. The active rollback of blue, we just need to do the same thing, log in the super user to fix these tests, but we're going to add a couple more tests. Log in the super user. Force login. Fix failing tests. Yeah, so that worked. If I should create a new test suite, I essentially want to check the context, the form. This is a tricky one. Let's see if we can just get a general high-level response to test the resident activity form view to ensure users only see resident names they are authorized to view. You should create tests that simulate different user scenarios. These scenarios typically include a user who has authorization to view certain residents, a user who doesn't have authorization, and possibly a super user who might have access to all the residents. Here's a general approach. That's what I was hoping for. And it gave a little bit of code. It's working on that too. We've got to set up the environment, so our setup function, create the test data in our setup function. And so this, we can use a separate test suite for this perhaps, and kind of group them together a little bit. Write the test case. Test for authorized user. Ensure that an authorized user can see the resident names they are supposed to. So the ones that are associated with via a home user relationship, user home, whichever it was. Test for unauthorized user. So they shouldn't see, they should actually get a redirect, or, if they're not associated with any homes, but they managed to get a user account. What I can do for that is add another method on the user model. I need to get my test coverage plugin set up so it shows me what's not covered, because I'm losing track of the things I'm adding. But on the user, I can say, we have this helper home. I'll add a property. Whoops, darn it. Can add activities is essentially what I'm after. His home user is getting close there. Cool. So that's a good helper. Then I can use that in the template. This is why I like having a lot of logic in the models. It makes sense, and you can access the related data and stuff like that. really easily. And then you can split things out into, refactoring it into like module level helper methods. Probably I should have specified that those are internal, but nonetheless, I'll just show you the idea here. So now for example, in our base template, we have a navigation menu actually, and this needs to be translated. So I need to use single quotes. There's that. And yes, I add unrelated commits. I try to clean things up as I go, even changing formatting and stuff. It's been a bit contentious at work sometimes. There's a threshold at which, a certain amount of formatting can go into a pull request and be reasonable from the reviewer's standpoint. And then at some point, you just have to separate the formatting from the work. But what I'm trying to do here is get these buttons. So we've got login, logout. Then we've got the button. So we got this button here. For adding work, it triggers the modal dialog, and the modal body is displayed here. That is the modal. Where was my button? I scanned past it. Work report, add activity, here it is. So essentially, this nav item should only display if user can. User, I think is it request user? Can add activity, right? Is that the one? Dag nabbit, where did I put it? Yeah. If they can add an activity, I think it roughly speaking should be the same for work, but we don't have the same permission system set up for the work. We're sort of developing two apps in parallel, converging them, where the work app was a hypothesis, or every app is a hypothesis we wanted to test, but we've had much more concrete results in testing this caregiving app with feedback, and we've co-developed it with institutional care providers and things. So we have a pretty good idea. This is a useful tool when I'm just in the process of porting it over to Python. Okay, a new incognito window apparently. So somehow somebody gets an account. So firstly, they don't see anything, but then I can log in, but I don't see that button. So that was essentially it. I only see the add work button. This is a thing I'll have to do later. And on the homes page, it's empty, right? And if I wanted to add an activity, as the user who can't, there it is. I can do it, but I can't see anybody. So that's the other thing now I can do is actually return 403 on this page fairly easily. I can hide it when they can't do it, and somehow if they get to the add activity page, they bookmarked it or something like that. These are rare contingencies, if at all, something I need to worry about. But that's interesting. Never heard of that, but okay. Wow, that was elaborate. This is my incognito window, and it did what it said on the tin. Man, that is really impressive. It used my bespoke property on the user model, and it used some internal Django logic, and then the form should render for users who can do it. So it's just displayed. And this is all just baked into the Django framework. It's well documented. It's been built into a lot of open source projects, and then hence the large language models have trained on it. And this is why the developer experience, and even without the large language model, is fairly impressive. But with large language model, it's just like kind of mind blowing at times, because this isn't shifting sands all the time. This stuff is kind of stable, pretty stable, relatively speaking. Okay, this pull request is sort of running away with me though. I'm getting close to 700 lines. I'm another couple of hours into the session today, but these tests are really important. And in particular, I want to make sure we've baked in the GDPR principles. I'm wondering if I should just put those in our README or something. Heck, where did they go? There we are. Just so I can remember them and come back later and figure out what to do with them. It doesn't quite belong in the README or the contributing guide. I don't know what to do with this, but what I can do Some of these do. So I just want some guidelines in our contributing guide. Cross-border data transfer regulation. We're not really able to control that as an open source project. We don't know where and how this will be deployed, but an organization who's deploying it, then we could, it would make sense to look at that. Hey, buenos noches. Welcome. Pretty good. How are you doing today? Getting some help from Chat GPT relating to data anonymization and privacy concerns, but it didn't quite. Okay, so let's see. Well, maybe this is actually pretty good. How are my prompting skills? Yeah, they're improving. Do you have any recipes or formulas, or what are your kind of techniques you use? A lot of times I'm doing like iterative prompts where I'll sort of work at a high level of detail, like get the big picture and then kind of zero in on this individual steps in that sequence. Like when I'm writing unit tests, for example, I'll be like, what are the test cases we should write? Okay, let's write test case A or B. That way I'll get a better result from the unit tests perspective. But let's go ahead and add this GDPR thing to our README or contributing guide, I suppose. And it's just a reminder to myself, but anybody else, of what we're aspiring towards and what to consider when adding new features. I suppose it can just go at sort of the end. I don't mean to just shove it down there, but I just want to put it somewhere. This is really interesting. And then we'll need to update the table of contents. So it's there, it'll be here, and we can jump to it. Do you use mainly like Chat GPT, or what kind of generative AI have you tried out? I've done Midjourney, Chat GPT. I've tried Bard a couple times. It's decent. I haven't tried the new one from Google. What was the one that they released recently? But I've also tried Anthropic, and basically this search engine Kagi, I don't know how you say it. They have a chat agent that's built into their service, and you can select between multiple language model backends. See if I can log in there real quick. 1 second. Let me just do that off screen, and I'll show you what I'm talking about there. Maybe you've seen it, but it's a really good search engine. One moment. Yeah, so you have this Kagi search. I don't know. I haven't figured out how to say that, but it's almost as good, if not getting better than Google. Somehow the Google search results have been getting like deteriorating for me, especially with sponsored results, taking up everything above the fold. Even you have to scroll down. This one doesn't have sponsored results. You pay a subscription fee, but it's got the Kagi Assistant, and you can upload documents and images, and it's got several variants. But for example, if I open the chat, Django, Python, just to get there, you get to select from multiple backends, and this is the first place I was able to try out the Anthropic. I've been wanting to do that, but it was somehow like not available in the European Union, probably due to privacy regulations. It was available in UK though. And then Google, yeah, it's paid, but it's like we pay regardless if we're, if we have the capability, if it's, budgetable to pay for some services. I think it's worth it to not pay for those services with our like privacy and personal data type of stuff. It's a bit tricky though, yeah. Because Facebook is free, but then you become a big advertising data point, and they track and stalk you. And I think that's not as concrete as paying. I think they're asking for now $20 a month, Facebook, to not be stalked on the internet by Facebook. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Is all these subscriptions, they add up for sure. But what I'm looking at is the ones that are sort of integrating services. Like I also use Notion, and Notion has built-in AI. So in a way, if I'm having to choose between subscriptions, I can use like one service like Kagi. I'm just going to say Kagi, and get good search results and have access to the large language models. Then I won't need like a Chat GPT subscription potentially. Another example is with Chat GPT though, now we have the built-in image generation. And so then I canceled my Midjourney thing. I was using Midjourney for some like game assets and other things. I forget exactly, just videos and stuff like that. Yeah, so it's, you know, good to be aware of. And of course, I totally agree that we need to be conservative with our money. Here we go. It looks a bit like a bit strange shape of cowboy, but not quite writing the GDPR. But hey, got the letters right. Fingers are looking pretty good on the hands. Not too bad. The lasso could use some work. It's not even really attached to anything. So objects aren't quite, it's just some sort of loop. Very good. Now the Kagi won't be able to do the image generation, but they can help with code, AI pair programming. So this could be a good one. And the subscription, you know, is cheaper than that, actually, than ChatGPT. You get the search, you get the multiple assistants. It'll help you do research. Image generator is cool. Microsoft Designer. Okay, it has a good one there too. Yeah, let me check that out. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting thing to see how the relationship between Microsoft and OpenAI develops, with Microsoft releasing competing products with the OpenAI tools like GPT and the DALL-E, but competing as one of the major investors and sometimes undercutting them. Like if this is free, create stunning designs lightning fast with AI. You have to sign up or sign in. Okay, it does give me a free. Thanks. Hey, by the way, we're sort of trying to make a video game, and we want to use a generative AI to help us with some of the game art. And it seems like it's really good for some types of game art, like static backgrounds for like an interactive fiction. But we're trying to figure out how to do consistent characters, for example, so we can have the character in different environments and stuff. We're really low on resources. All right, so this did something. It gave me some analogies that I could use as like brochures when I'm convincing cowboys of the importance of GDPR, sort of like going around door to door. Have you heard about our savior, GDPR? That would convince people, I think, pretty good if I had a nice large language model image. Okay, let's make it bigger. Yeah, this one, look at that. Ride into compliance with GDPR. Whoops. I went back. I was trying to go back to the results. Anyway, that's cool. Thanks for sharing this. 4K resolution, 3D and Octane rendering. Okay, so cyborg, cowboy in a shootout. Well, wrestling. How about not? How do you spell that? Monstrous. And you said 4K, 3D Octane. Employee of the month. Couldn't be generated. Something may have triggered Microsoft's responsible AI guidelines. That's what I was worried about. Shooting, wrestling, monstrous. In love with the GDPR. Can it not generate images of cyborgs? It might offend the cyborgs or the cowboys. Cowboys are pretty thick-skinned, though. I think they should be all right. Cyborgs, though, well, I guess they're synthetic. Now, it looks like it's doing something. It's 3D rendering it. Using NVIDIA, 32 gigabyte memory, managed, 4K, it's in a queue, waiting, timeshare computing. Here we go. Look at this. Cyborg cowboy there. Cyborg cowboy in love. Ooh, it animates it too. Crazy. Oh, hey. I think the UX could do a little bit. It's a bit confusing for me, so my user experience is confused. With 4K, with GDPR, 4K resolution, 3D Octane rendering, so it puts that in the subtext. So then basically you can edit the text, or are these like static? Yeah, so it's like a designer, hence so it's going to have actual elements that you can work with. That's really cool. Nice. Thanks for the heads up on this one. Pretty cool. I don't have a Microsoft account, but I'll keep it in mind. I've also got a Canva account we've been using for some promotional materials and stuff. I think Canva's also experimenting. It's cool to see so many of the companies, what they're doing with the generative AI stuff. And you can really then find like the best value. If you do decide to subscribe to something, you can find one that can do like the things that you needed to do with the user experience you're looking for. Like Midjourney was a bit, it's a bit difficult to work with. It has really good results, but it's like in a Discord user interface. So it's like, okay. But there's another one called like something AI. Yeah, crud. Oh, well, they're all something AI, but it's something to do. Anyway, it has much better user interface. I got email from them. This one seems like it has a pretty good interface. DaVinci AI? No, it's on DaVinci AI. No, it's something else. DaVinci. Yeah, that was it. Oh, Leonardo, right? This one's pretty cool, and it's got a really neat interface, and it came the closest that I found. Firstly, just to being super easy to use. All the configuration variables are there, you know, hidden under menus in some cases, by all the styles and the settings you can configure, and it's got in painting and out painting and up painting, and we were almost able to do consistent characters like this. That's what we're really after. And the text rendering is decent, which is not so important with us. And it's cool, like Canva and the Microsoft one you showed me, they just actually generate text. So you can then manipulate that and correct the text. So that's pretty rad. But this one, I think, after comparing a bunch of them, this was like the best in terms of user experience and the features. We were thinking about if we were to add a subscription for our little game development project, it would be probably this one. Right now the game development is on pause. We might be picking that up in the next weeks though, using the Godot engine, and it'll be open source as well. We also tried using DALL-E for some of the generation. It's good, but it's sort of mediocre compared to like Midjourney and stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of parameters, but I suppose, you know, like if you look at like a Midjourney guide, you know, Midjourney 6, I was watching a video, it was like 30 minutes just talking about all the parameters, the art styles, the camera types, and but you kind of have to memorize those or have a cheat sheet handy. But it's very powerful and very expressive. You know, the different scene types, if it's a close-up or it's very cool, very configurable. I prefer a graphical user interface that helps guide me through those and gives me buttons to click so I don't have to remember everything or have a piece of paper printed out with all the dealies. So yeah, anyway, this Kagi's been pretty cool to me. I'm glad to not have to have advertisements. That's one of the things is I'm, you know, willing to pay if I have the means for like a little bit less advertisement, web privacy, and WordPress GDPR compliance. In North Dakota's wondrous wildlife. Cowboys do not need protection from the GDPR, as the general data protection regulation only applies to processing of personal data. Cowboys are people too. GDPR regulates how organizations collect, store, and use personal information about EU residents. EU. It does not place any restrictions on cowboys living freely on the plains. All right, I'm sorry, Kagi. I was confused. By that. I thought the cowboys were endangered. How did I get there? I want to do the chat with... Let's see if GTP4 is a little more friendly. What's the difference between 4 and Turbo? Turbo is just faster and cheaper, I think, right? Let's do the premium. Give me that. Wow, your question is quite unique. Oh, is that a way of saying stupid? It seems there might be a bit of confusion. GDPR, the general data, I thought this is much more informative. Wow. Much more than I asked for. I didn't generate using the image creator. That's why I printed text. Okay, let's check that one out. Nice. This is really cool though. And I gotta take a quick break. I'll be right back. I gotta fill up my bottle of water and do a full cycle there. Yeah, this looks much more like it. Yes. So somehow I just landed on the landing page, I guess. But I'll be right back. All right, let's try it out. What should I prompt it? What do you think? Something appropriate that passes Microsoft's appropriate committee. A large cup of GDPR. Sign up or sign in. Man, I get it. I don't want to though. So sorry, Microsoft. I may have a Microsoft account. I may have one, but I'm really not into their stuff right now, or I haven't been for many years there, Pilgrim. All right, let's get back to the thing at hand. I forgot even what it was. Okay, so we have this form. I need to make sure that I can only see, so the GDPR whole thing is